The base is dropped on a new edition of Soccer Down here, September 10th. It's a Tuesday, which means it is hashtag Tuesday Thoughts. So join the conversation with us on Twitter at Soccer Down here. I'm sure there are thoughts about the U.S. men's national team, who will be in action tonight as they host Uruguay in St. Louis. We will be doing a special, very special, pre-match show live from Pizzeria Azzurri in Cumming, Georgia. We are following the North Star to get there.
You're not kidding.
It might require us to end the show early to get there on time for a 7 o'clock start. No, not really. It's not that far away. But it's kind of far away. But this is something that, one, we're going to do more of. We're going to bring SDH to the people, John. We're gonna take SDH on the road more often, and we're going to go hang out with the folks who are outside the perimeter because, you know, the brew house is our hangout inside the perimeter. It's a great location for you and I. It's kind of almost right in between the two of us. Everybody at the brew house takes great care of us, and that might be the brew house calling right now, John.
Yeah, really?
Did you pay your bill last night?
I did.
All right, just checking. No, that call was the interesting timing right there.
Heartbreaker. It's a number that I didn't recognize. Therefore, you just immediately hang up.
That's what you do. But we'll be headed up to Pizzeria Azzurri tonight. So for those of you on the north side want to come out and watch U.S. and Uruguay, come join us. We'll be on the app and on the website and on Spreaker starting at 7 o'clock. Lineup should be out about that time. We'll dig into it and we'll get you set. But we'll get you set today as well with a lot of talk about the U.S. men's national team because that is kind of dominating American soccer Twitter at the moment. And it's a complicated conversation. We got into it last night on Soccer Over There. It's not a simple discussion, and I think some of the talking points have been a little overly simplified about, well, you can't build out of the back. Well, yeah, you can. You really can. It's a good way to play. Can you with this group? Greg Berhalter thinks that he can. Should he? It's a different question. All kinds of things wrapped into this, and we'll try to hit it from all different aspects. So if you guys have questions, please tweet them at us at Soccer Down here, and we'll get into them. Before it gets lost in the shuffle of the U.S. national team, let's go back through the matches from MLS over the weekend because it has continued to add to the wackiness that is the 2019 Major League Soccer season and the wackiness that is the playoff chase in both conferences. And you had some wackiness in these matches over the weekend. With only 5 of them, the crazy quotient had to be upped a little bit. And I think it delivered. I think the league schedule delivered on that side. And we'll start with the first one. In Yankee Stadium, NYCFC took their time finding the winner against New England. They dominated the match, and early red card helped with that. We'll get into that call because that was an interesting one. It's a 2-1 win for the Pigeons over New England Revolution. It's the 5th straight win for NYC. That's the longest winning streak in the league in 2019. NYC had an expected goals number, an XG number of 4, which I just don't ever remember seeing something that large. But it took a late penalty for them to get the win, and Jesus Medina was the star here. The referee could have been considered the star as well. Silvio Petrescu was one of the talking points coming out of it. The red card. It was initially given as a yellow. But if this is a dog-so situation and the replay, I mean, it's a judgment. I think it was. If it's a dog-so, it's a red. And that's the decision here, is because it's not inside the penalty area. And this is where I think people get a little confused on that change to the laws, John, about dog-so and red, but it's in the penalty area, and you can't have triple jeopardy, and all the different things. This is well outside the area. If you're going to call the foul and it is decided that it is a dog-so situation, it's a red card.
Yeah.
I'm not.
Ain't no way around it.
I don't love the foul call there, and that's
Right.
probably what I would have tried to work my way out of, and I think you could have. It looked like De La Mea got part of the ball, got the touch. I think you could have gotten away with not calling the foul and not giving the red. If you judge it as a foul, and Petrescu did, you can't just give the yellow there. It's dog, so it's red. You're boxed in. And that obviously changes the game when it happens so early. You didn't like the penalty call at the end.
No.
What didn't you like about it?
See, now I'm going to have to go back, and I'm trying to play it back in my head. But it's just, to me, it didn't seem like there was enough contact for it to happen, if I remember correctly.
I think he got him with the back leg, and that's what ultimately got the call. Defender slides in, front leg, and the replays were really interesting in this one because the first angle, it didn't look like there was any contact. Then they showed a different angle from the other way, and it looked like the trail leg caught the attacker. And that's where I thought it was a penalty. It's another tough call that goes against New England in it. Bruce Arena, probably not a happy camper, probably not sending Christmas cards to the referee crew. Don't think that's going to happen in this case. And Jesus Medina converts on the penalty in the 96th minute. That was a bit of a surprise because you look at who's on the field at that point. It feels like Maxi Morales is going to take that penalty. He gives it to Medina, who hasn't been a regular this season. He had the goal earlier in the match, and he converts. It's one of those things that maybe turns Medina's season around, and they're going to need him with Eber out injured. Medina's going to have to step up. Maybe this is the game that gets him going.
And that was how I looked at it, that, you want to give somebody a boost. You want to give somebody that little bit of extra oomph, and it's like, okay, that confidence is there, and you complete this in this spot to give full points, and you're like, okay, so now you've given that bit of momentum, that mental momentum to somebody. So what do you do with it from here forward? That's the key. Does this help turn your season around, or is it just something along the line and just it was something that happened that got you full points? So we'll see. But yeah, as I'm looking at it again, honestly, for me, the shot from up high, for me, it looked like it was more of a falling over as opposed to a contact. And so I thought that there was.
I really, truly think the second leg is what made him go over.
So, but for Medina, he gets the PK. Does this help him mentally going forward for the stretch run for NYCFC? That's the question.
Well, that's all well and good, but what if he missed?
Exactly. Then you have a double oomph because Medina's thinking about it from this moment forward, and Maxi Morales, for trying to do a guy a solid who should have just closed the door anyway, didn't do it. And now you've got that double oomph that's right there.
You got a lot more than a double oomph because you got 2 points off the board too, because then it finishes as 4? A draw. So what probably happens is Jesus Medina goes back to the bench and we don't see him again for a while. Maxi Morales is in the doghouse a bit, and you drop 2 points and you've got some big problems. So it was a risky thing to do. It worked out. NYC gets the win. They are in a very good spot with that. New England it's a little tight. It's a little tight for the Revs. They've made a great run to get to this point, but they're in 7th place right now, 2 points up on Montreal. They do have a game in hand on Montreal. They have a game in hand on Orlando. They have a game in hand on Chicago. All the teams chasing them. But now they're in that spot that's a little riskier. One reason they're in the 7th spot is Toronto FC. Big win for them over Cincinnati. I mean, there's no surprise to Toronto beating Cincinnati. Maybe a little bit of a surprise about how easy it was. 3 first-half goals, 2 assists from Pozuelo. Cincinnati played Greg Garza at center back. That tells you all you need to know.
Yikes.
Kendall Waston was away on international duty, and Garza's playing as a center back, and it doesn't work. Some really nice goals from Toronto in this one. Michael Bradley's goal was a really good one. Nick De Leon's was a banger. Toronto goes up 5-0. Emmanuel Ledesma gets a penalty late, 5-1 finish, and Toronto moves into a spot where they're in 6th on the table. They are level with the Red Bulls on points in 5th. They're 1 point behind DC and have a game in hand on them, who's in 4th. So keep an eye on Toronto. They are always lurking around, but do they get it done? Well, they go to Yankee Stadium on Wednesday, and we'll talk about that tomorrow, because that is a critical game in the Eastern Conference. A critical game involving an Eastern Conference team over the weekend, Orlando and LAFC. Orlando had a 2-1 lead in the opening 20 minutes because this game was drunk early. Just 3 goals in the first 20. Goals back and forth. I mean, LAFC scores to open it. Adrian Perez scores in the 12th. Off the kickoff, a deflected ball falls to Nani. He converts with a great goal to make it 1-1. Benji Michel scores 7 minutes later. It's 2-1, 20 minutes in. Diego Rossi breaks Orlando Hearts with a 78th minute goal, and it finishes 2-2. That keeps Orlando in the 9th spot in the table right now, 4 points behind the Revolution, and Montreal is in between the two. This felt like a game where Orlando should have won. LAFC was not that great in it, and it's got to feel like 2 points dropped for the Lions.
Yeah, and you look at LAFC going in, and they only came in with 16. Their bench was Danilo Silva, Dejan Jakovic, Alejandro Guido, and Mohamed El Manir. That was it. 4 guys coming in for this match. And, you know, you do tip your hat to Adrian Perez for getting on the board. Rossi gets on the board. But for me, I still look at LAFC and the lack of depth and the lack of confidence in the depth. And I know that, you know, for me, I always go back to the quotes where Bob Bradley wasn't too pleased with Pablo Cisniega. And so what happens if something goes down with Tyler Miller? And Cisniega is going to have to turn it up. But, yeah, you come in with 16 guys and you only play 2 of them. If LAFC fades, and we got into this last night a little bit, you know, if LAFC fades and continues to fade going into the playoffs, then what are folks going to think about LAFC toward the end of the year as opposed to everything that they've accomplished? Does everybody focus on the bright lights of what has been happening in the tail end of the season, or are they going to look at the larger picture?
If they break the Red Bulls points record, there could be short-term disappointment if they don't win MLS Cup, but there shouldn't be a black mark on their season if you put 75 points up on the board. I think that's a little ridiculous. It feels like a team that, like, as we've said, honestly, for 2 years now, that has a great starting lineup that isn't very deep. And I want to make it clear, questioning LAFC's depth has nothing to do with them with 16 players in this game. You had injuries. You had players away on international duty. You had teams around the league with a shorter bench. That's not the question. It's not a numbers question. It's a quality question. And Bob Bradley has not really felt comfortable turning to his bench all that much. He gives Tristan Blackman a game as a center back here instead of Danilo Silva, instead of Dejan Jakovic. He plays Adrian Perez and Josh Perez. Haven't seen as much of them. Lee Wynn has been an option off the bench primarily. Rossi has to slide inside, playing as a number 10. There's just not a lot. The goalkeeper thing, I think a lot of managers in the league are probably in that situation where they don't necessarily trust the number 2. So that one doesn't stand out to me too much. It's just, I don't even think it's a Vela thing. I mean, obviously when you lose a player that quality, you're going to be different. I just think in general, they don't have the same depth as not just Atlanta United, but other teams in the league as well, and it could come back to bite them. It hasn't yet, not in a big way. I mean, it's easy to look at it and be like, oh, they drew with Orlando. That's bad times for LAFC. But that doesn't take away the season they've had. That doesn't change the narrative of 19 wins, 4 losses, 6 draws. Doesn't change any of that. What grabs your attention a little bit is the fact that they have 1 loss and 2 draws in their last 3. It's the longest streak this season they've had like that. That stands out a little bit. That's a little concerning if you're Bob Bradley, and does that change when they have a really difficult match on Saturday where they go to Philadelphia? That's what I want to see. All right, is Carlos Vela back with the hamstring injury? Is he okay? Has the break helped him? Or are there maybe larger concerns there? What about the rest of the squad? Do they get back to the form that they've had? LAFC finishes up this season with the trip to Philadelphia. They host Toronto. They host Houston. They go to Minnesota. They host Colorado. The 3 home games they should win. That's 9 more points. That already takes you to 72 points. And then you have the road games in Philadelphia and Minnesota. They can win in Minnesota. I don't think they win in Philadelphia. I feel like that's a draw at best for LAFC. So you could see them winning their final 4 and going to 75. I do think they break the record because I think they get to 72. I think they win their home games. If they break the record, it's kind of hard to complain about anything else that happens. There will be conversations if they bounce out of the playoffs in a really disappointing way. Always. There's always a possibility of questioning things. We know that. But in general, if they win Supporter Shield, break a record, and come up short in the playoffs, that's still a hell of a year for a second-year team. And there's not a whole lot to complain about. But they're not unbeatable. And that's what I think has really been blasted home here in the last week or two with them. The struggles with the Galaxy. They lost to Minnesota at home. They go to Orlando with a very heavily rotated team because of absences, and they get a draw with Orlando. They've had some losses this season that are, head scratchers. I don't know how they handle being the favorite in the postseason when that time comes. I think the matchup could be really difficult for them. If they see the Galaxy in the postseason, they're going to be a little worried about that. If they see Portland, I think they're going to be a little worried about that. If they see RSL, they might be a little worried about that after what happened last year. So they're not unbeatable, but they have put together the best regular season that we've seen up to this point. We'll see if they can close it out. They should. They should get to 72 points minimum. I think if they fall under that, then, you're going to have some questions about how they finished.
Let me ask you this. You mentioned LAFC, and I'm adding Carlos Vela back into the mix here. When you and Mike went out to Los Angeles to see them at Bank of California, if you take that one stretch and remove it from the match itself, I would say, without hesitation, that Atlanta United stood up to LAFC at home with the first choice 11 that Bob Bradley wanted to trot out there, and was right there with them for that entire match, save that one section where the field tilted. And I think that also is something that folks can look at as well. It's like, okay, if I've got my best and you've got your best, we've seen a microcosm of what that kind of competition can be when Atlanta United was in town.
But that's what I've said all season, is that's not pulling LAFC back to the pack. That's recognizing that Atlanta United is as good as they are.
Right.
Because they are that good. And they're better, I think before the Philadelphia game, before you started to see that fatigue kick in, the week of NYC win, Club America win, Portland win, that's as good as anybody's played in the league this season, including LAFC. It was that good. The quality was that good. So, Atlanta can beat LAFC. Portland can beat LAFC. The Galaxy obviously have beaten LAFC. They haven't lost to them. They've got a bunch of draws. Do they win a penalty shootout if it goes to that in the postseason? We'll have to see. There are teams who can go in there and beat them. There are teams who can go in there and play with them. There are other teams who go in there and get overwhelmed. They're a really good team. They are. And that's okay. That's, in the East, I would like to see NYC and LAFC in a high-stakes game. How's that going to look? Philadelphia, we're going to find out on Saturday. If the Union get a win over LAFC, the Union are a team you got to reckon with the rest of the way. I think they already are, but if they beat LAFC, there's no denying it. And then you start to, LAFC had been portrayed as a team that was so much further ahead of the rest of the league. Have they come back to the pack, or have a few teams stepped up to meet them? I'm leaning a little bit more towards the latter in that LAFC has set the pace, but you have a few other teams that have gotten up to that level and can play with them. We'll see. Seattle was one that we kind of wondered if they were one of those that could get up to that point. Look, they had a really difficult task here, and it's hard to take a lot out of Colorado's 2-0 win at Dick's Sporting Goods Park. Seattle, you talk about a short bench. Seattle
38 absences for
Seattle. Yes. They had to sign 2 players on emergency call-ups from Tacoma to get to 16. That tells you all you need to know. It wasn't good for Seattle. They lose 2-0. Andre Shinyashiki with 2 goals. He's your MLS Player of the Week. The Rapids are 2-0 under Robin Fraser, and the Rapids are a team that I think you want to keep an eye on going into 2020. They've got money to spend. They've got designated player spots. They've got a manager who, he's gotten a couple wins. We'll see what he can do with an off-season, what he can do with a full preseason. Keep an eye on the Rapids. Seattle, look, they're still in second in the Western Conference. They've got a 1-point cushion over Minnesota, 2 points over San Jose. It's still tight for them, but they should be okay from here. They host the Red Bulls on Sunday in what will be a very, very interesting match on Sunday, late afternoon, early evening. Final game of the weekend was a great one. Portland 2-1 over Sporting Kansas City. It looked bad for Portland after Benny Feilhaber got a goal in the 65th that he absolutely did not mean to do. It was a cross that just drifted into the far side netting, and the look of shock on Benny Feilhaber's face was quite entertaining. Portland rallied the troops. They found a way through. Abobasi gets the goal in the 83rd, and just an outstanding one from Brian Fernandez at the end in the 90th. If you haven't seen the Portland clip from it, the call from Jake Zibin and Ross Smith was outstanding. Valeri's cross, that's why you pay that man whatever money he wants and needs, because he won you the game. Fernandez is the one who converts it. It's his 11th goal since showing up in Portland, but Diego Valeri's cross there was unbelievable. So Portland gets a critical win in this one. They are now in 6th in the West, but they're level on points with 5th place RSL, 7th place FC Dallas. They're 1 point ahead of the LA Galaxy. They've played the same number of games as the Galaxy and RSL. Dallas has played one more game than that crew. And Kansas City, they're 6 points back. They have 5 games left. They're not completely and utterly done, but you're getting into a almost, need to win out type of phase. And it's almost an elimination game on Sunday in some ways, where they go to Carson to face the LA Galaxy.
I look at the West, and 2 through 8 separated by 4 points. It's absolutely bonkers. And, I think this is one of those times where you said, I'm glad I'm in the East kind of looking at this, but the West is just absolutely crazy for the remainder of the season. It's been crazy for a while, but as you're getting here into the home stretch, everything's going to be fun. So everything out West, however you watch your games in the league, make sure that you set your appointments for everything going on out West, because it's going to be absolutely crazier than it has been previously.
Yeah, this last month of the season is going to be what I think is set up to be the greatest month in MLS history in terms of storylines, quality, just games that you can't miss. It's going to be a lot of fun. And Saturday, it all kicks off again. There are some matches tomorrow. We'll preview those tomorrow. We'll get you set for MLS Fantasy. We'll look at some juice box purveyors and such. But everything gets back into full picture on Saturday, and we'll get you ready for that on Friday's show. All right, we're going to take a break. We're going to come back. We're going to talk U.S. men's national team. If you guys have Tuesday thoughts about the hashtag USMNT, send them our way on Twitter at Soccer Down Here, and we'll start to dig into it right after this.
Looking for future leaders we can trust and believe in? Look no further than the high school student athletes right here in Georgia. High school sports teach young people how to be effective leaders. It begins by making their grades and being on time for practice. It includes learning to listen, following directions, accepting responsibility, being a good role model. And it's about respect for officials, opponents, the rules, and each other. The result? It transcends sports. It gives us hope for the future. High school sports. There's so much more than just a game. This message presented by the Georgia High School Association and the Georgia Athletic Directors Association.
Today's show is presented by Appolinsky & Associates, personal injury lawyers with over 30 years of experience, supporters of Atlanta United, Faction, and Inter-Atlanta Youth Football Club. If you've been hurt in a wreck, contact Steve today at steve@aa-legal.com or call in 24/7 at 404-377-9191. The initial consultation is free.
We know that every driver is different, and a one-size policy does not fit all. That's why Country Financial offers a variety of discounts, so you get the coverage you need and the savings you deserve. From good driver to good student, multi-policy to multi-car, we've got a discount to suit every driver. Call Jason Wright at 678-568-6871 today to see what you could save. On Facebook at Jason Wright Agency or by phone at 678-568-6871. Discounts vary by state. Policies issued by Country Mutual Insurance Company, Country Preferred Insurance Company, or Country Casualty Insurance Company, Bloomington, Illinois.
Welcome back, Soccer Down Here. U.S. men's national team tonight in action against Uruguay. We talked a lot about the USMNT yesterday on Soccer Over there. I'm sure we're going to talk a lot about it the rest of the day. A lot to talk about after the loss to Mexico, and there's a lot of philosophical discussions to have here, and it honestly gives me some flashbacks to earlier this season with Atlanta United, and when you talk about implementing a style and a philosophy and what's acceptable and what's not acceptable, and it gets really interesting. One quote from Greg Berhalter yesterday. He said, "Listen, let's be fair to fans. We have an obligation to the fans, and that obligation is to win games and entertain them. We're trying our best." 100% agree. That's true. But Berhalter is also in a spot where he is balancing that entertainment, that obligation to win games, with preparing, developing, building a philosophy, building a style of play. And according to players from the Mexico national team, changing the way that soccer is thought about and talked about in the United States. That's a lot to take on. And should he take all that on? I don't know. That's a lot. Glenn Crooks had a couple tweets that I wanted to touch on. Glenn Crooks is one of the radio voices for NYCFC. He does the Coaches Academy show on SiriusXM FC, friend of the show. Glenn said, he tweeted this. He said, "Many believe that the hashtag USMNT does not have the personnel to, quote, build out of the back, unquote, as mandated by Greg Berhalter." Berhalter's response, quote, "Do I believe the players have the ability to do it? Yes, I do. They're technically good players, and we're going to develop. I agree that they have the ability to do it for the most part. I worry about Zach Steffen doing it. And I think you have to – there's been enough where you have to think about, all right, how much do I want my goalkeeper involved in this build-up? That does limit you if you're going to build out of the back and you don't necessarily trust your goalkeeper with the ball at his feet, but it can be done to a degree. That's my biggest question about it. But, yes, I think the players have the technique to do it. The players, in this case, John Brooks, Aaron Long, haven't really been asked to do it all that much. And I think Long is a prime example. The Red Bulls don't try to build out of the back. The Red Bulls, Aaron Long's club team, want to play direct. They want to play in the other team's half by skipping the lines and activating their press. Long's not asked to play out of the back as much. Miles Robinson is. And that's where you start to get into this next layer question of the manager wants to play in a certain style. Is he picking the best American players, or is he picking the best American players who fit the style that he wants to play? And that's where you get to this question. You also have to see what you got. I mean, we see it with teams that let's go back to Spain, because that's a basis of comparison here for a style that is somewhat similar to what Greg Berhalter's wanting to do in building out of the back and being a possession-dominant team. Not to that level of quality because you don't have an Andres Iniesta, a Xavi right now, but that's the ideal. Okay. In that Spain team, you had a core of Barcelona players that, dictated the way you played. But you were also able to incorporate a Sergio Ramos, for example, who Real Madrid didn't play in the Barcelona way in their heyday, but he was able to do it because he had the ability to do it. So you have to see, can Aaron Long play in this way? It hasn't been horrible for Aaron Long, but is he 100% comfortable doing it? Well, that's another question. Another one from Glenn Crooks, and this is more from Berhalter, who said this, quote, talking about the build out of the back development. Berhalter said, quote, I go back to the Gold Cup and thought we were too direct, and in this game, talking about Friday's match with Mexico, I thought we were not direct enough. That's a little different than what he said after the game on Friday, and that's much better when you talk about, I think Friday, the quote was more along the lines of, we were better today because we did what I wanted the team to do than in the Gold Cup final. And that didn't ring very strongly with folks, which is understandable. You lost 3-0. That, what he said yesterday, is a little more along the lines of what I think he was trying to say, what I think he was meaning. You have to pick your spots and when to be direct, and sometimes when you're trying to implement a style and it is play this way, 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 you get locked into it and you don't see that, all right, this match is calling for us to play a different way. This match is setting up for us to do something different. Also about tonight's match, Berhalter said, quote, we're liable to set up differently. Mexico is a team that traditionally high presses, and we don't expect that to be the case for Uruguay. So we will see what differences happen tonight. Brian Rodriguez for LAFC could start for Uruguay. He started against Costa Rica on Friday. The U.S. will have a very different starting lineup because there are a number of players who return to their club teams, and we'll see what kind of lineup Berhalter throws out. I think it will play differently because Uruguay will just defend differently. I think they'll defend in a deeper block. And that possession that the U.S. wants will be there for them. And they'll be able to build out of the back, and they'll be able to do what they want to do getting into the attacking half. And then the question becomes, can they get into the final third? Can they create chances with it? And can they be positioned well enough to protect against the counter? That's what I think this game's going to come down to, which is a different conversation than Mexico. Do we have any questions, comments, thoughts on a Tuesday on the Twitter show?
Well, we do, but I have a question first.
Okay, you get priority.
Can you build out of the back and entertain at the same time?
Yeah, Was Spain boring? Was Spain a bad team to watch?
No.
Has Barcelona been a bad team to watch?
No.
Is Manchester City right now a bad team to watch?
No.
Okay. Yes, absolutely. I think it's crazy to think that you can't be entertaining and build out of the back. I mean, everybody has different styles that they enjoy, different things that they look for. I'm not as entertained by a team that refuses to build out of the back and plays direct and just looks for second ball, looks for the knockdown, and makes the game a battle of 50-50 duels or 50-50 aerials or situations like that. I'm not as entertained by it. I'd rather see a team connect passes, build forward, and see combination play win the day. That's what I enjoy outside of seeing a player, do something special. To me, that's better soccer. That's the thing about the sport, though. There's not one way to play, and there's not one way to define good soccer. So some of it depends on what you like, and a lot of it, and this is where you get to the bigger question about that comment that I keep coming back to from Hector Moreno from Mexico about Berhalter and this team trying to change the conversation about football in the United States. If you're not used to it and it doesn't work, or there's a mistake made in it, you're going to yell about, well, why are you playing that way? Why don't you just lump it forward? I don't think lumping it forward and being afraid to build out of the back is what you want long term. Some games might call for it because you can't build out of the back because the other team is too good defensively, pressing up highs, taking those options away, or you don't have the personnel to do it, so you have to do something different. That's fine. In a competitive game, would you have seen different changes quickly or earlier, seen some tactical shifts? Maybe. It's possible. This wasn't that on Friday night. I just, long-term, totally get what he's trying to do. I think long-term, yeah, I'd rather see a team that plays, like I said, what I think is good soccer, what I think is the better way to play, what I think gives you more options to control what happens in the match. The more you have the ball, I think you're in more control of the match. That's just how I feel about it. Jose Mourinho would disagree with you. There are plenty of managers around the world who would completely disagree with you if you say that the more you have the ball, the more control you have of the match. Lots of managers find ways to control a game without the ball. I think Jesse Marsch, Chris Armas, when the Red Bulls have been really good, have done that. Okay, that's fine. You can do that. I think it's better to have the ball. That's my personal preference. So building a team that wants the ball and wants to control the ball and wants to build out of the back, I'm on board. I'm good with that. The question for me, the bigger one, is can the national team do that every time out when you have players, like I mentioned Aaron Long, who don't play in that way? Spain was able to create that, and it took a little bit of time for Spain to get to where they were because they had a club like Barcelona that's the players they were producing. And that became the core of the national team, and the players that were called in to supplement that core were players who fit and could play with them. You don't have a club right now dominating what the national team looks like with the U.S., and I don't think you ever will, because you're going to have so many players who play outside of the country. You're going to have so many players who come from different parts of the country and different academies. That's where you get to that bigger conversation. Is Berhalter's job just to win games with the national team, win tournaments, get qualified for things? Is that it? Or is there a bigger picture aim in place? If there is, it has to be more than just the national team saying we're going to build out of the back, we're going to play through the back, we're going to control the ball. It has to be more than that, because that's great. That doesn't change development at academies. That doesn't change the mindset of MLS clubs and other youth clubs. That doesn't change the fact that if you're Berhalter and you want to play that way, you want more players to be produced who have grown up playing that way to to where it's second nature. If you're not doing anything to affect that development, then you're running into a wall and it's not moving. So these are the things that are really difficult because the U.S. is not Spain. It's a lot larger than Spain. You're not going to have one club dominate the development picture because then others see what Barcelona does and they say, well, hey, we can do our version of that. We can copy that. We can take lessons from that. It's not going to be Germany like the Das Reboot book, which is a great one to read if you want to dig a little deeper into these types of questions about philosophy and creating a style and rebuilding a structure. The Das Reboot book that looked at Germany after the failures in the Euros in the early 2000s and the lead up to them hosting the World Cup in 2006. It's fascinating because they were able to affect development at all of the Bundesliga clubs and change the way that players were developed. It's not going to happen here. The country's bigger. You don't have, I think, a strong enough federation and a strong enough technical staff from the federation to affect that change. So, how do you do it? I don't know. And I don't know if the national team manager can do it. I don't know if they should do it. And that's where you're at right now. That's where this is a far more difficult question than just, well, you can't build out of the back. Well, why? It's complicated. Like, there's so many complications that go into this. Berhalter's job is not an easy one. I think the things that I think are a little frustrating when you get down to it is if you weren't going to look at Tata Martino, and it is kind of obvious that U.S. Soccer was never going to consider him, and if the language barrier thing was part of it, then that's just stupid. But if you weren't going to consider him, if you were dead set on hiring Greg Berhalter, it's not like he wasn't qualified. It's not like he was a completely awful choice. Those things just aren't there. Were there potentially other choices that could have been better? Yeah, there are. They weren't really considered, it seems like. So it's not like you went completely off the board and pulled a surprise. You pulled somebody that was very well respected. You hired somebody who had some success in MLS, didn't have a trophy, but had some success. And now it's not like he forgot how to coach. He's doing what you thought he would do. I think my bigger question is, if his job is to get results, he's got to dial it back some and get more out of the group that he has to work with, if this is the best group. If he's dead set on playing a certain way, then he needs to call in players and make it clear that we're going to play this way, and I'm going to call in players who fit that way, and that might change what the pool looks like. It feels like we're in a halfway, if that makes sense, kind of in a midway between we're going to do this big philosophical thing and we're going to get results, and it's like you're stuck in the middle and you're not really doing either one as effectively as you could.
Correct.
That's a bad spot to be.
Yes. It's I don't want to use the word counterintuitive because I'm still trying to figure out what the right word is, but you're pulling yourself in two different directions, and then when you do that, there's nothing that gets accomplished, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, I mean, to change the narrative about building out of the back and make it acceptable and all those things, that'd be great. I'd love to see where possession's not looked at as a bad word. I'd love to see that. But if you don't have the players who can pull it off,
the P word again.
I mean, it's been that way at times, and I think it's silly. But if you don't have the players who can pull it off, then no, possession might not be what you want here if you don't have it. And you're not going to be able to develop that inside the national team just on its own. It's going to take a good while, and if that's where you're at, and if he's got the job through 2026, which was talked about into his hire, was look, we're hiring him for the long term here. Okay, then fine. Then do it, and don't worry about it. And Aaron Long will learn, and Zach Steffen will learn. Whoever else is with the national team will learn. And yeah, you're going to have a long time to develop them in national team situations alongside their club play. Okay. Then tell me that the results don't matter right now, and I should be looking for different things and watching these games. And if that's the case, okay. All right. That better pay off in 2026. or you've wasted 7 years. And that's the risk.
And, when and this goes back to the discussion that we had last night when it comes to U.S. soccer, you want to entertain, you want people to come in and you want people to enjoy your product. But if something's not working, then the in-game plan B, I would think, needs to be there just as much, to sit there and instead of continuing to bang your head against a wall with this idea, unless that's your idea, then tell people that's your idea. If this is the idea from now to 2026, tell people that this is what the idea is. If you're there to entertain, then okay, then let's figure this whole thing out. But I think right now, once again, that you're in the middle of these two ideas about trying to get a solid 11 to get you into Nations League and get you moving forward there. Or are we working on the long-term plan toward 2026? I know that fans are looking at the more immediacy of it, but if Berhalter's looking at building things, as you say, where he's the technical director and the coach, are you building a philosophy? Are you building a plan? Are you working short-term? Are you working long-term? You can't work both. I just don't think you can work both sides of the street. Otherwise, you're stuck on the center line.
You can work short-term and long-term to a degree, but one has to take priority over the other. And if that flips a little bit based off if it's a friendly, if it's a competitive game, all right, I can roll with that. If you go into these next 4 matches with Canada and Cuba and CONCACAF Nations League and you say, look, we're going to get results here, we're going to do what we got to do, we want to play in this way, we want to play as a team that controls possession, and against both of those teams, you should have the opportunity to do so. And we're going to stick to it. Okay, cool. Those aren't the games I'm really worried about. Those are the games where, yes, I feel much better about where the U.S. sits in CONCACAF now. In that, if you go back to the last bit of qualifying, they were 5th. That's not good enough. Now it feels like they're a solid number 2 behind Mexico. Okay, I'll take that. That's some progress. So you're playing Canada and Cuba. You should win all 4 games. You should have 60+% of the possession in all 4 games. You have to defend against the counter. You have to worry about where your turnovers happen. These are all common things, and you should take care of business. And if you do, that's cool. Okay, I'm in. That's good. The question for me is, what is the plan B when you face a Mexico who's going to press you and make that build-up play difficult? What is the plan B against a top-tier team that has more talent? Because you're probably not going to control the possession. Then how do you play? That's the next level part that we just haven't seen anything to hint at what that's going to look like yet. And it's something we're going to have to see eventually. So that's where my head's at. What does that look like when the time comes? And I just don't really know. So we'll see. Questions on the Twitters, John?
We have them. Apparently the Suburban Ultras are trying to remind us to not to forget to promote the $2 eggnog special tonight.
There's a $2 eggnog special?
Apparently
I hope that's not true.
According to the Suburban Ultras.
For people who are coming out new to Pizzeria Azzurri, I have been told that the wings are unbelievable. So if you're thinking about dinner options at the Pizzeria Azzurri. You don't eat wings?
Oh, I do. A little messy, though. If we're doing a show, it's kind of messy.
Well, I'll eat them after the show. Like, we're only doing the show pregame. There's a game to watch.
Well, and since the place is called Pizzeria Azzurri, you might want to try the pizzeria.
That's where my head's at. The wings are great, but I'm a little more on the pizza side. No offense to the wings, but if you're thinking about what you're going to get at Pizzeria Azzurri, I've been told that the wings are excellent.
Yes, but for me, I'm leaning toward the pizzeria because it is Pizzeria Azzurri.
I'm kind of in that direction too, but I have not decided as of yet.
El Mataflow, fellow fan of the first place Sky Bet Championship, Swansea, says that he can almost guarantee that this game will be difficult to watch for USA fans. I have a tendency to agree. Uruguay is a team defined by garra, led by a stubborn mastermind, a stout defense, and a culture that refuses to back down. This is everything I wish the USMNT was.
Ooh, there's some interesting things in that. Yes, I think it's going to be a difficult match because Uruguay is going to sit in a low block. They're going to defend deep. They're going to look to beat you on the counter. They're going to give you the ball in your half. They're going to give you the ball early in the middle third, and then they're going to choke you out defensively. You're going to have to be good in those spots. All right, that's okay. That's the U.S. has been working to be better in those games. All right. Okay. This is a good test. Very good test. I don't want to see the U.S. play in that way in terms of a low block, in terms of sitting back and just being stout defensively. I want them to be able to do more. And I think Uruguay is completely capable of doing more. I think we've seen it over the years. But that is what they are known for, the garra, for sure. I think you can have a team that has the garra and has the ability to play in a more expansive way. It's not easy because that's a combination that is a pretty special one. I do want to see the U.S. get back to who they historically were, and I'll go back to Bob Bradley years and further back, where they were a team that fought, they were a team that worked hard, they were a team that was just difficult to beat because they weren't going to quit. They were fitter than you. They did have better athletes because that's what we could rely on, and they were just a tough out. I think the end of the Jurgen Klinsmann era lost that. And I haven't necessarily seen that come back in large enough numbers. You need players with character to play in that way, and character on the field. I think a Miles Robinson, for example, isn't a player who, like, it's obvious his work rate because he makes it look so smooth so often, but talking about a guy who works hard, and you're not going to beat him easily. I think you have some players in this team like that. Jermaine Jones was that kind of player. I mean, Jermaine Jones was just a difficult guy to play against. When he was at his best, I mean, he was relentless. Yeah. He was a bulldog. Players like that. Clint Dempsey absolutely had garra. You know, I mean, he's a guy who's very difficult to play against. A guy who wasn't going to quit. A guy who would kick you any spot that he could if he got the opportunity. If it was
another regional attack,
yes, he would do that. That's what it is. You don't have a lot of those guys at the moment, and I think you need to figure out. All right, are there some players that can give us that and fit into this system and do it? Maybe so. Maybe that's just something you don't have a lot of at the moment, and you need to go look for it, and you need to talk about it if you're Greg Berhalter, and you need to look for those guys in MLS and Americans who are playing in other countries. I don't think you have enough of that right now. I want to see this team get back to that, but also not be a defensive team. And I hope that what Berhalter is trying to do can change the narrative a little bit and can change the conversation and can affect development, because that's what it has to do. If you do all this and, you know, it doesn't work or you don't sell it properly, if you don't get the players ultimately who are being brought up in a style that suits it, you're going to have a more limited player pool. I mean, I think you do have clubs that are developing technical players, developing players who can make decisions quickly and do what is needed to play in the way that Greg Berhalter wants. I think you have clubs in the U.S. who are doing that. I think you need more. And I think you need more to do it in a better way and continue to do it and continue to get these guys minutes at higher levels and be tested. I hope you can get there. So I hope what the U.S. can do ultimately is take elements of what makes Uruguay such a difficult team to beat, but also add it to other things that are mixed into what the U.S. player pool melting pot can be and be a more expansive version of it.
Jorge continues. He says, in international soccer, my allegiance will probably always lie with Ecuador, Uruguay, then USA. There are so many aspects of the USMNT that can be good, but the culture surrounding this team is sometimes so blah. Hashtag Tuesday Thoughts.
The culture surrounding this team at times on Twitter can be so toxic. I mean, it's that the hashtag is just a bad, dark place on a match day that is not resulting in a 5-0 win. It's just, whoa. And look, it's been building. It's not like it was always that way. I remember in 2014, I was disappointed about the way that the team played in 2014. I didn't like seeing the U.S. be so defensive in that tournament. I didn't like seeing Tim Howard set a record for saves in a World Cup match because that means he gave up that many shots. I didn't like those things. I felt like it was a disappointing World Cup, but that wasn't the narrative in 2014. That was not the narrative coming out of it. I felt like I was like, wait a minute, what am I missing? Because I'm not happy with the performance, but everybody else seems to be. So, okay, maybe I'm wrong. Since then, and you're talking about losing in a Gold Cup semifinal in Atlanta on home soil to Jamaica, a team that you should not lose a Gold Cup semifinal to. You're talking about the qualification, early failures, and then ultimately not qualifying. And the whole process with the Greg Berhalter hire, the whole process with Sunil Gulati leaving the presidency of the U.S. Soccer Federation, all of those processes that were going on around all of this stuff, and it is taken from 2014 to now to where it is a very dark, toxic fan base that is not happy with what's going on, and they have a lot of right to not be happy with what's going on. And then also the prices have been jacked up and you're not selling tickets the same way because it's not a compelling product to spend more money to watch than you used to watch before when it was a more compelling product. There's a lot of things that U.S. Soccer has to do better at. I think it starts with the PR. It starts with the storytelling. It starts with making people want to get behind this team. The Federation is not doing a good enough job of that at the moment. And it is showing at the box office. It is showing in the stands. It's showing with the TV ratings. So if you have other allegiances to other national teams, yeah, it makes total sense that you would lean more to Ecuador and Uruguay right now because they're more interesting. And that's something that U.S. Soccer has to take on. That's not even a Greg Berhalter thing. That's not a player thing. That's a selling it thing. And I don't think the Federation's doing a good enough job of that right now at all. So it's frustrating. It's very frustrating. It feels like a lot of wasted opportunities. And I hope that U.S. Soccer figures this out very, very soon because the results side still has a lot of work to do. It's not going to happen overnight. So you got to sell me on something because otherwise it's hard to get very excited about watching the U.S. at the moment. We're going to try to set the scene, and we're going to try to not sell it and lie to you today at Pizzeria Azzurri Incoming. We're going to try to tell you what the storylines are because that's as much of it as anything for me is what should we be looking for in these games? If it is a building process, cool. What am I looking for? What am I judging it on? And these are the things that are just not clearly defined at the moment. So we will do our best to do that for you tonight, starting at 7 o'clock. But we're going to take a quick break. We'll get into the Twitter timeline a little bit more right after this.
A ranger station.
I'd like to report a bear hug.
Okay.
I put out my campfire and Smokey Bear hugged me.
So you drowned the fire, you stirred it, drowned it again, and felt that it was cold?
Uh-huh.
Yeah, he's just letting you know you did good.
Bear hug from Smokey Bear. Status update.
I'm gonna let you go now. There are many ways to start a fire, but one sure way to put it out. Learn how you can do your part at SmokeyBear.com.
Sponsored by the U.S. Forest Service, Ad Council, and your state forester.
As a business owner, you know that every year brings new challenges and opportunities. The success of your business demands expertise and focus. And Country Financial can help you keep that focus by helping ensure you have the right insurance protection in place to meet your goals. Jason Wright can help you create a customized insurance plan that has coverages designed just for your business. Give Jason a call at 678-568-6871 or reach him on Facebook at Jason Ray Agency. Coverages vary by state. Policies issued by Country Mutual Insurance Company, Bloomington, Illinois.
This is what matters. This is beyond X's and O's. This is the difference mutual respect makes. This is what character looks like. This is what defines us in Georgia. This is sportsmanship. School sports. It's not the outcome that matters most, but the way the games are played. This message presented by the Georgia High School Association and the Georgia Athletic Directors Association.
If you've been hurt in a car wreck, contact my friend Steve Apolinsky of Apolinsky and Associates. He's been representing individuals for over 30 years throughout Georgia and Alabama. Email him at steve@aa-legal.com or call him 24/7 at 404-377-9191. The initial consultation is free.
You're listening to Soccer Down Here daily on SDH Networks, a division of OSG Sports. Find us at Soccer Down Here on Facebook and Twitter. The time is now the top of the hour. Peep, y'all.
Welcome back. Tuesday Thoughts here on Soccer Down Here. September 10th, USA, Uruguay tonight. We'll be at Pizzeria Azzurri in Cumming. Kickoff is just after 8. We'll do a pregame show starting at 7. If you can't join us out in Cumming, you can listen on the SDH app and soccerdownhere.net and Spreaker, all your usual spots for listening to the show. But you guys got to have a lot of Tuesday thoughts, so let's get back into the Tuesday thought hashtag.
Steve Adino says he's been listening to the podcast for a while now, and he's never heard anyone refer to you as J-Lo. How is that even possible? It's obvious. Okay, happy Tuesday. Say hi to A-Rod. Winking emoji, JK.
I've never been called that, ever.
Nope.
So, yeah, that's never been a nickname that has connected at all.
No.
Back in my DJ days, I got called J-Rock a little bit.
Oh,
Didn't really
no.
stick.
Oh.
God, it's not that bad.
No, it
What's
just
wrong with
sounds like 98.7. It's J-Rock here in the morning.
I didn't DJ in places like that, by the way. I was not that guy. But
You
no.
didn't do the artificial voice or anything like that?
No, I don't do the artificial
Thanks,
voice.
everybody, for coming out and hanging out tonight. We're
It
going to
was
be
not-
here for another couple hours spinning all the greatest tunes. You got any
It was
requests?
not
Come on
West
up and give them
Palm
to me.
Beach radio, wacky morning show radio. No, I didn't do that. I
Honk,
DJ'd in
honk.
clubs. DJing for Petey Pablo in Athens. I'm not going to get away with that kind of a silly voice. So, yeah, nobody's ever called me J-Lo, so I'm okay with this.
Bartimus Prime starts with a y'all.
Okay.
Y'all. Jossie Zardes is 28. He's not the future of the USMNT
No, he's
at all.
not.
He only played for Berhalter for one season in Columbus, so it's hard to imagine he's completely ingrained in the system in a way a younger, more talented striker could learn. Hashtag Tuesday Thought.
Yeah, no, I agree. The Jossie Zardes thing to me, I think I've been pretty clear in this. Like, he's a backup. With the national team, he's a backup. I mean, I think people take it way too far in the comments about Jossie Zardes. The guy can score goals in MLS. The guy has scored goals in MLS. The guy is, if you're doing a depth chart of forwards from the United States right now, he's in your top 3. Some would say he's number 2 ahead of Josh Sargent because Sargent hasn't played much at the senior level, not senior national team level, senior club level. I think Josh Sargent will be the number 1 guy very, very, very soon. Maybe by the end of this calendar year. If not, I think definitely by the end of the next calendar year. He'll be that guy. I think Josie Altidore is still that guy right now. I think Josie Altidore is still the best striker that the United States has, and if everybody's healthy in a must-win game, that's who I would feel the most comfortable turn into. I would not feel that way about Jossie Zardes unless I don't have Josie Altidore and I don't have Josh Sargent. I would move Sargent ahead of Zardes right now. I would. In these games that are friendlies, because I want to learn something. I want to see something. In a game where I got to win something, all right, I'll take what I've learned from seeing Sargent in these games. I'm not a Gyasi Zardes, like advocate, but I do think that some of the criticism is a little harsh. And this is just something in general that I think has developed over time with the conversation around U.S. national team players. Gyasi Zardes is not a bad professional soccer player. And I don't know why anybody would think that. I mean, this is a player who in 3 seasons in Major League Soccer out of 7, this is his 7th. He's got double-digit goals. And he's coming off of a year in 2018 where he scored 19 goals for this manager in this system. I agree, he's not fully ingrained in it because he only played 1 year, but he scored 19 goals last year for Columbus. Like, that's not bad.
No.
That's not bad at all.
That is not bad.
I think Josie's the better striker out of the two. And if it's one or the other, I'm playing Josie. If it's Zardes or Sargent in a friendly, I'm going to give Sargent more minutes than Zardes because I want to see what he is. But I don't think he's got it on lock that you just say, well, Josie, you go sit over there. No, because Sargent doesn't have that many senior club matches under his belt. He's still got things to prove. But Zardes is not garbage. And just because you're not a national team player who is playing at the biggest club or in that top 1, 2, or 3 on the squad doesn't mean you're garbage. Gyasi Zardes is a very, very good professional striker. He's just not the best one that the U.S. has. That's okay.
Steve Adinho with a Tuesday thought involving Atlanta United.
Okay.
And it's a poly-based question, so here we go. It's complex compound.
Oh, boy.
Can you give us your deepest, darkest gut feeling for roster turnover next season? LGP, Barco, Miles, etc. Is Sweet Parky gone? Is Tito's exquisite hair going south if Barco stays? All this scary stuff to break our hearts early on a Tuesday morning.
I mean, so much of it is unknown because you don't know all the contract situations, but from what we know, I think it will be hard to keep LGP, Gressel, and Nagbe if all of them are out of contract or going into the final year and they all want salary bumps. I think it's going to be hard to keep all 3 because of the salary bumps required. That's probably my biggest concern is I don't think if all 3 are coming up, all 3 want raises, I don't think you're going to have enough money to go around to keep all 3. That's the one that I come back to. Parkhurst and Larinowitz, do they want to come back as even more reserve type of players for another year? I don't know because I think that's where it would trend towards. I don't see Barco going this season at the end of the season. I don't see Miles Robinson going at the end of the season. I think there is more money to be made and potentially more trophies to be won with them being in Atlanta for another full year. I think Barco has the potential to break into the Argentine, either the U23 squad and go to the Olympics next year. And yes, you're absolutely going to let him go, even though it's going to be, he's going to miss matches with Atlanta United during the Olympics. It's worth it for him to go. It's worth it for him as a player. It's worth it for the club. It's worth it for his market valuation. Robinson would be in that same situation. He could be part of that squad during the Olympics. I think you're probably having the same discussion. So that's where you're thinking about a roster construction of you got 2 guys who could potentially be away during the Olympics late next season. You got to have the depth to deal with that loss. You got to have the depth to deal with them being gone at that point. Because I think it would be worse to deny them that opportunity than to let them go and have to ride it out. So what does that look like? I don't know. But I don't see either one of those guys leaving yet. I keep coming back to the Gressel, LGP, Nagbe boat because all 3 have been talked about with contract situations going into next year, and I think it's going to be hard to give all three the raises that they've earned and they require. So that trio is the one that I worry about, keeping all three of them.
Daniel Price, national question. I agree that the players can do it. It's going to take time. I do agree, though, that Stephen so far has been a liability. Not good with the ball at his feet. It's not his game.
Yeah, that's the part that concerns me, and that's where I keep coming back to. Berhalter would know that. You know, he had Stephen for a while in Columbus, so you know, if you're gonna play this way and you know that the goalkeeper is not somebody that's all the way comfortable in playing this way, you've got a tough decision to make. Zach Steffen's a great shot stopper. I mean, he didn't get signed by Manchester City by accident. It's not like they meant to sign somebody else. He's a great goalkeeper, and he has the potential to be the number one for the United States for a long time. But he is a liability in possession. So if you're going to be a possession-based team, you've got to deal with that better, because there's been too many issues that we've seen with this now. I don't know what the easy solution is. I don't know if Greg Berhalter is a guy who can do, for example, what Pep Guardiola did at Manchester City and say, Joe Hart, you're a great goalkeeper. You're very good, but you're not the goalkeeper for me. Bye. I don't know if he can do that. I don't know if he wants to do that, and I don't know if he's strong enough to do that. I wonder what the reaction would be, because everybody has anointed Zach Steffen as the man. But in possession, he's not the man. And that's a huge issue if you're going to be a possession-based team that builds out of the back. I would lean more to Brad Gazan. And it's not just biased because I see him every day with this team. Brad Gazan is a player who I think does the job in possession. I think he is a goalkeeper who makes all the saves that you need. He's capable of making big saves as well. He hasn't had to make as many as Steffen, I think, because he's been on a very good team here. I think he's a better fit. We'll see if he gets to start tonight.
Shiva, the things with what Greg Berhalter is trying to do is it takes time and practice and consistency. The men's national team don't have enough training sessions and consistency of players to do that right now. There had to be a plan B.
That's what I come back to. I don't, when I worry about the training time and those things, which are absolutely factors, it's not to say that you can't play this way. I disagree with that. You can. But there are times where you're not going to be able to adequately prepare to play this way. So you have to have that plan B. And against the Mexico team, I hope maybe you've just gotten it out of your system and you know that, all right, we're not going to be able to control the game in this way against Mexico, although they had the possession advantage. They did pass at a good clip. When they made mistakes, they were punished. They didn't create enough either, and that's the bigger question for me is if you have this possession advantage, you have to create something out of it. And when you don't, then it's a waste. And they didn't really create very much. So if you can't do that against Mexico with the possession advantage, if they're going to wait for you to make their mistakes and they're going to pounce, well, you need to have something else next time you play them in a game that matters. And that could be at the CONCACAF Nations League Finals next year. So we'll see if there's been a lesson learned. Canada and Cuba in the next games that matter, you're going to have a lot of possession. They're going to sit back in a lower block. They're not a team that is going to be as able to hurt you as Mexico. You should be able to do what you want to do and control those games and be in a much better situation than Jurgen Klinsmann was in some of these games. Because let's be real. When you go back and look at the qualifying campaigns in the two cycles that Klinsmann was involved in, the U.S. struggled in the semifinal round both times. And you're talking about struggling against some very small teams because they played in a way they sat back. They just, looked to play direct over the top because they couldn't build anything up. And you didn't really do a whole lot with that. I think what Berhalter's doing will put you in a better position to deal with those opponents. And that's a very important part of what he's doing. But he has to have that plan B against teams that, look, he just can't outplay them in this way. And that's what I want to see develop now.
MLS Buzz is reporting. They're just saying on their Twitter. I'm just going to go ahead and say it.
Hold up. All right. There's a video attached to it. It's not... MLS Buzz is not pulling things out of their... Woo-hoo.
No. There was a reporter who was saying things on tape.
Xavi Campos is the reporter from Spain who covers Barcelona on Catalunya radio. And what did he say?
In the last 24 hours, I'm going to go with MLS Buzz here. Messi as a player, Zidane as a manager have been linked to enter Miami. And Messi is apparently somewhat intrigued if the financing gets worked out.
That's the Messi part's the Xavi Campos part, who does stuff with Catalunya Radio, and there is a video with the conversation. So if you want to dig a little deeper, there you go. That one, reportedly, Beckham has reached out to Lionel Messi about playing for Inter Miami, says the offer to come play in MLS interests him, and the finances of the deal would be huge. The Zidane one to Inter Miami, I have not seen where that's coming from yet. So give us a minute on that one. Okay. That's interesting. The Messi one, look, Messi has done a series of one-year deals for a long time with Barcelona. He's always had these outs. They've always upgraded his deal year after year after year because, I mean, he's the cash cow. They know this. And he's been there since he was a child. So it's a unique situation. I don't think he will play his last professional match for Barcelona. I think he will ultimately play his last professional match for Newell's Old Boys, a club in Argentina that he started at as an even younger child, and a club that he never got a chance to play for at the senior level because he went to Barcelona at 12, 13, maybe 14. If you don't know the whole story about how Messi ended up at Barcelona, Messi was undersized as a child and was recommended to get hormone treatments to help him grow. And at first, his father was able to get these through his insurance, get these through healthcare in Argentina. When job changed, he wasn't able to do that. Newell's Old Boys wasn't in a financial position to actually follow through on things that they said and be able to do it. So with help from some different agents and folks, and it was a very complicated process, he ended up at Barcelona, got signed, and they took care of it for the early years in his time at Barcelona. I mean, he was injecting himself in the thigh with, hormone treatments to help him grow. And it did to a degree. Yeah, I mean, he's never going to be a big guy, but it helped him get kind of over that hump where he just wasn't growing at the same rate that he should have been. So that's how he went to Barcelona. He's been there since then. I mean, it's almost 20 years now. So it's not going to be easy for him to leave, but I think he will because he grew up as a Newell's fan. He played in the Newell's Academy. He had to leave, and he never got a chance to play for them in the Argentine League. And as we've seen, whether it's a Diego Maradona going back to manage in Argentina, whether it's a Daniele De Rossi saying, I've got to experience this, whether it's a Maxi Rodriguez still playing for Newell's at 38. Like, it's a place that has a pull for people. And if you're a Lionel Messi who has always battled with the whole thing of, is he really Argentine? Does he really care about playing for the national team? I mean, the criticisms of Messi in Argentina at times have been insanity. I think he wants to have that at some point. So I think he ultimately finishes there. Does he come here first? Well, there's a lot of money to be made. He's spent a good bit of time in the United States. By all accounts, he's really enjoyed his time here. There's a lot of people that I think he's close to that would be able to tell him everything he needs to know about the league and all the opportunities that it could have for him. it would not surprise me at all if Lionel Messi plays in Major League Soccer. It really would not. Miami would be the type of club that would absolutely throw the money at it to make it happen. And all the talk about Miami and, well, they've been a little slow to get started and all this stuff with the stadium and this and that. How big are they going to be? And, well, are they really going to play? He signed Lionel Messi. Forget all that noise. Yeah. Forget all of that kind of noise. It will be the biggest thing that this league has ever seen. It's not going to be easy to make it happen, but could it? Yeah, I'm not ruling it out. I'm not ruling it out at all.
Not
could
ruling
it be
anything out?
No, I mean, could it be part of a negotiation to get more money at Barcelona? Yeah, it could be, absolutely, and that would be smart for an agent to do. But I'm not ruling anything out, and I'm not ruling anything out when it comes to a figure with the magnitude of David Beckham, who would be able to sell this in a way that I don't think anyone else previously could have done it in MLS. I think that Beckham, having done it himself, benefited from it. He can have that conversation with Messi in a way that I just don't think there's anybody else who could. So could he get this done and could he make this happen? It's possible. It is. I mean, Barcelona's not what it was 5 years ago, 10 years ago. It's not the same place. And Messi could be like, you know what? I'm done here. I've done all I can do. If they win Champions League this year, I think it could absolutely accelerate the process, and he goes. Because there's nothing else. There's nothing else for him to do. So, who knows? Keep an eye on it. Xavi Campos is somebody you want to probably follow on Twitter. It's Xavi with an X, Campos. He is not your run-of-the-mill, just random person on Twitter. He's got over 11,000 followers. So Catalunya Radio is a source you want to keep an up on. And MLS Buzz does a really good job of keeping you up to date on these things that are out there. And they generally do a really good job, too, of not just throwing stuff out that's not, telling you where it's coming from, not giving you the sources on it. So keep an eye on this. It's starting to gain a little bit of momentum, and we'll see what happens.
AS.com were the ones that were referencing sources in the UK, and that dances itself back to everything back in September with Marca.com and OneFootball.com, where Beckham was apparently talking with Zidane. So AS.com is resurrecting that stuff that came back in September about Zidane being a part of Inter Miami.
Yeah, I think that one's less likely unless it blows up at Real Madrid in the next month, maybe two, because I don't think Inter Miami wants to get to MLS Cup without a manager.
Yeah.
I don't think they want to get there. I think they want to hire somebody in the next month, and I don't see Zidane walking out on Real Madrid over the next month unless it just all falls apart, which is Real Madrid. It is possible, but yeah. I think it's far less.
Ancelotti?
I mean, isn't he a little busy as well?
True.
Yeah, so why he would walk from Napoli in the early stages of a season? No.
Anything's possible.
No, but that's not possible. To say anything's possible and just then throw out anything is no, we're not going to do that. Ancelotti's not walking from Napoli right now. Like, that's not going to happen. There are plenty of guys out there who it could be. The one that I keep coming back to that would make a lot of sense at the moment is Gattuso. I mean, that was a link that happened. It hasn't really been mentioned in the last couple of weeks, but he's available. And that's what it comes back to for me is you got to get somebody at this stage. Nobody's leaving a European club, a major European club, to take Inter Miami right now if they're working. Like, that's not going to happen unless something changes. It's going to be the guys who are not working at the moment. And there's quite a few of them. So we'll see what happens. I think Gattuso is the one that makes the most sense.
August 5th, Miami Herald. Apparently Gattuso is in talks with David Beckham. That's August 5th, Miami Herald. Yeah.
That's the one that makes the most sense because he's available.
So Percy Herrera asks, let's assume this happens with Messi/Zidane, I guess, referencing MLS Buzz.
Okay.
Would this put butts in seats league-wide?
Yes. Lionel Messi, yes. Zidane, no. I don't think a manager sells tickets. I don't. Maybe one time, maybe a little bit of a bump. But Lionel Messi, it's a sellout everywhere he goes.
Open the upper deck.
Everywhere he goes. Oh, that's a duh. Open the upper deck in Seattle is the bigger point. Open the upper deck at BC Place. Open the whole stadium at Gillette. That's what you're talking about. Yeah, 100%.
Let's see. Nick has chimed in with his short list for Inter Miami. He has, in order, Gattuso, Ranieri, Moyes, and Scolari as his top 4 for Inter Miami.
Yeah, Scolari's really interesting now that he is available. He's not somebody that would be there very long, but he would be a great person to launch with. I still think Gattuso makes the most sense. I think he makes more sense than Moyes. I lean to Gattuso or Scolari out of that list.
Because part of this also is winning the press conference. Would David Moyes win you the press conference?
I don't know if he'd lose you the press conference. It's a different process because if you have a guy like Ranieri or Gattuso or Scolari, your press conference is not going to be all in English. It's a different type of press conference. You're just in a different situation. I don't think winning the press conference is as big of a deal, to be honest. I don't think it is. I think they do need a name. I think all of these would qualify as that. I think Gattuso would be the one that's the most dynamic of this group because he would have a dynamic presence in press conferences, but also on the sideline. Nick says he speaks English, so yeah. I mean, I wonder how those press conferences would go. Because it's one thing to speak English, but it's another, like a David Moyes would be able to be, I think, more expansive in a press conference. I don't know. I haven't seen Gattuso do as much of that, so we'll have to see. But I think Gattuso is the best option they have. I really do.
Daniel Price has a scouting report for tonight.
Okay.
Pizza good, wings heavenly, onion rings awesome, garlic nuts, garlicky pizookies to die for, fries very delicious. You know what? Just order the entire menu. The eggnog thing is new. Excited for that.
I'm not ordering the whole menu because I don't want to explode. I will have some tough choices to make.
Jorge B. says, during his introduction to Gimnasia, Diego Maradona promised he will not miss any team practices. And he just missed the first official team practice.
Get ready for the crazy ride of Diego Maradona managing in Argentina. It's going to be insane, hopefully insane in a good way, but you never quite can tell.
Then we have Kefsi with a national team thought. Hope to see Pamakal tonight. Please say hi to the Suburban Ultras who hung out with we super urban teddy bears in February in DC watching MLS following a Rome derby and several tall steins. Good to see them traveling. Glad to see the show on the road. OTP, ITP, UTD. # Tuesday Thoughts.
Yes, we are trying to unite all of the ITPs and OTPs and all of that because, it's good to do. So we will be starting our march to coming in probably like 2 hours because it'll take that long to get there.
Yeah, really?
No.
we need OTP Sherpas to get us to Pizzeria Zuri. It's going to be fun. It'll be fun to see everybody and a lot of stuff going on. Tafka wants to know if he's wrong in presuming anytime Inter Miami comes to Atlanta, with or without Messi, it'll be a full stadium event. I feel like Inter is going to be our league nemesis in every way.
I don't know about that. I mean, what Inter's doing is depending on if they pull a move like that. If they pull a move like that, then you're talking about a different conversation. But so far, they are very LAFC and Atlanta United and kind of NYC and kind of Toronto. So I don't know if I'd say like they're the league nemesis above everybody else, like all of a sudden, and it's that. I think they're coming in to win things, just like LAFC is and just like some others are. They'll be in that group. It'll be a big game. It'll be a big game like LAFC coming next year will be a big game. Like NYC coming is a big game. And even NYC still with now that they don't have a David Villa and it's guys who aren't household names, but they're still a big club. And I think they have that big club feel. So Miami will be that from the jump. Absolutely from the jump. And if they pull a move like Lionel Messi, then it's a whole different conversation. Then I
believe that would be who doctor.
Well, then you're having New York Cosmos types of flashbacks to Pelé. Yeah. Then you're having LA Galaxy flashbacks the first year they signed Beckham. Then you're having those types of moments. But the difference is you're having those moments in a league that is more competitive. You're having those moments in a league that I think it won't just be look at the superstar coming to town. It will be look at Lionel Messi leading a big team into town. And I don't think we've ever had that really truly be the case in American soccer. I mean, the Cosmos with Pelé, it was the Cosmos Traveling Roadshow.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like the league situation was not as big of a deal. It wasn't a few markets who their team had that, but not many. The days when Beckham, first came into the league and it was, Galaxy and Beckham show up at RFK and it's packed out and you have a Beckham cam with him sitting on the bench because he's injured and then he comes in late in the game and it's this big deal. You'll have some of that, but I feel like it'll be far more in a sport context. It won't just be he's a big name, he's a superstar. Ooh, it'll be he's a big name and he's a superstar and his team is really good and they're new and they want to win the trophy and they want to take it from Atlanta and they want to take it from LAFC and they want to take that crown from whoever. And yeah, I feel like it'll be different. I hope it is. I really do. I hope it's not just like a paparazzi moment. I hope it is a big sporting moment.
You want to come back for the final half hour after a commercial break?
Yes, let's do that. We're going to take a quick one. We'll be right back after this.
Looking for future leaders we can trust and believe in? Look no further than the high school student athletes right here in Georgia. High school sports teach young people how to be effective leaders. It begins by making their grades and being on time for practice. It includes learning to listen, following directions, accepting responsibility, being a good role model. And it's about respect for officials, opponents, the rules, and each other. The result? It transcends sports. It gives us hope for the future. High school sports. There's so much more than just a game. This message presented by the Georgia High School Association and the Georgia Athletic Directors Association.
Today's show is presented by Appolinsky & Associates, personal injury lawyers with over 30 years of experience, supporters of Atlanta United, Faction, and Inter-Atlanta Youth Football Club. If you've been hurt in a wreck, contact Steve today at steve@aa-legal.com or call in 24/7 at 404-377-9191. The initial consultation is free.
We know that every driver is different, and a one-size policy does not fit all. That's why Country Financial offers a variety of discounts, so you get the coverage you need and the savings you deserve. From good driver to good student, multi-policy to multi-car, we've got a discount to suit every driver. Call Jason Wright at 678-568-6871 today to see what you could save. On Facebook at Jason Wright Agency or by phone at 678-568-6871. Discounts vary by state. Policies issued by Country Mutual Insurance Company, Country Preferred Insurance Company, or Country Casualty Insurance Company, Bloomington, Illinois.
Welcome back. Soccer Down here, September 10th. Getting ready for USA and Uruguay this evening. We'll be watching up at Pizzeria Azzurri and coming. We'll do a pregame show starting at about 7 o'clock. You can listen to on the app, on the website, soccerdownhere.net, and on Spreaker. What else do we have on the Twitters?
A thought from Shiva and Chris Gersel came in behind. Shiva wanted to know, on a random Tuesday thought, with the amount of South American players and fans that Atlanta United has, why does United not have a Spanish website and social media site?
I don't know. I'm not involved in that strategy, so I don't know exactly why that's the case. I don't know how much of an impediment it has been, and that's the question that I kind of wonder from overall, because I think you do have Spanish language radio with La Mejor. You have a lot of Spanish language media covering the team, and I don't think they've been limited in doing so. I would love to see more Spanish language content, and I think some of the things that they've done here lately have been great in terms of, video interviews, videos with players in Spanish with subtitles. I like that strategy, and honestly, I mean, even though I am far from a comfortable Spanish speaker, I share plenty of content in Spanish because, one, it's good content, and two, I want it to be more common in that way. I want it to be more of a bilingual conversation as much as I can carry, at least to make it clear that it's respected and the culture's understood. So I know it's something, I believe, in an AMA that was done on the Atlanta United Reddit with the digital team. I think they talked about the fact that they are still, kind of exploring and figuring out how to incorporate that. I don't think it's a bad thing to not have a separate account for it if you have Spanish language account in larger numbers on the main Spanish language content on the main account. And I think that's something that they've been incorporating more this season. And I hope to see more of it, because I don't know, maybe it's just me. Like, I'm cool reading like a interview in Spanish if it's Justin doing it, for example, with a player, and it's all in Spanish, but I've got subtitles so I can try to keep up. I love that content. Do it. I think it's great. I'd love to see more of that. So I think it'll continue. But in terms of like the strategy from a media perspective, I don't know. That's beyond me. But I think it is picking up, and I hope to see more.
Tafka has a thought this morning. Says that MLS is just a few steps away from legitimate top 5 league argument. Here's what needs to happen, and I'll go point by point with you.
Okay.
Number 1, the CBA avoids a strike and ups the minimum salary to $100,000.
Yep.
2, minimum of 25% bump to the cap, add a DP, and do that while maintaining all other cap mechanisms.
If you keep everything structure-wise as it is, and that's GAM, TAM, all that stuff, and you bump the cap 25%, okay, I'm fine with that. I don't know if 25% is the magic number, but you bump the cap a significant amount, cool. I think you have to bump TAM along with that. I'm cool with that. And adding another designated player slot, I'm good with that. I would love to see the potential for adding a 5th designated player spot that would be specific to a young designated player. So you can have 4 of whatever variety designated player you want, and if you're going to have a 5th, it's got to be a young designated player. I would be okay with 22? Something like that. 23, I think, is where they've generally set it. So I would be cool with that. I think if you bump the cap, you need to bump TAM too. I think there could be a way to do it all, though, where you just throw GAM and TAM into the cap and just do it that way, and you bump it up. I'm not against that either, if that's the way it goes.
3, and this goes into part of our news and notes segment. Austin succeeds. Texas needs a marquee team.
This comes up a lot about, like, oh, you can't have another team in California. Well, you can't have another team in Texas. I don't think what happens in Houston and Dallas will affect Austin in any way, shape, or form. And I don't know if what happens in Austin affects what happens in Dallas or Houston in any way, shape, or form. I think it's market by market. I don't care how many are in a certain state, and I'm not going to put a limitation on the state or anything like that. So I think Austin needs to succeed just because every new team that comes into the league needs to succeed and push it forward. I think Houston needs to be better, regardless of what Austin is or not. I think Dallas is what it is. Dallas is not going to be a big, massive, huge 50,000 people coming to games, even if they had the stadium to do it, kind of situation. I don't see that. But I think Dallas can play a very important role because of their investments in the academy, because of how much they emphasize that. They can be one of those clubs that's their focus, and that's okay. Not every club has to be doing it the exact same way that Atlanta, Miami, LAFC are going to do it. That's okay. I'm fine with that. If Dallas is a team that draws 18,000 and develops, a ton of players, that works. Houston's just not doing any of that, and they're not drawing.
I mean, for me, it's don't look at the other guy. Don't overextend yourself. Build your model, because there are different ways to be successful and different models to do it. If it's through the academy, do it that way. If it's wanting to chase things the way that Atlanta United, LAFC are looking to do it that way. If you're tied to Manchester City or a larger overseas conglomerate like NYCFC is, and that's the way you want to do it, then do it that way. If you're the Red Bulls, do it that way. If you're Dallas, do it that way. Don't be something you're not, because you could stunt your growth and create larger issues down the line. That's just my biggest thing. Be you.
Well, yeah, I mean that's a given, but I'm talking about it in Tafka's context of Texas needs a marquee team. I don't think the state stuff matters really. I think Austin just needs to be a big team because they're new, and every new team that comes in has to push the league forward in some form or fashion.
And with Precourt being in charge with that, for me, that's the thing I'm going to be looking at is he going to do things initially that will come out with the quote-unquote big splash, and then is he going to revert to what happened with the crew if things don't go his way initially and it's not success that is translated onto the pitch?
I don't even think that's fair because he bought the crew to move them, flat out. I don't think he bought the crew to keep them there. I think he always had the move in the back.
It was in his. He put that in the codicils of the agreement when he purchased them.
Yeah, I mean, I think he did make an effort in Columbus, but I think having that out, he didn't put as much of an effort in Columbus. And now he's added some people to the ownership base. I don't think you're going to see that happen again in Austin. He's not going to. It's not going to. If it doesn't take off and they don't make a boatload of money in year one, I don't think he's going to start angling to move. That's not going to happen. So, no, it's not the same conversation.
Point 4 from Tafka. NYCFC gets a real stadium. Yankee Stadium's holding them back, and by extension, holding back the New York soccer legitimacy and rivalry.
Completely agree. The rivalry part I disagree with. I think that part's fine. I think it's an embarrassing look for the league. It's holding back what the New York soccer market can be. The the New York soccer market, not the tri-state soccer market, not the New Jersey soccer market. It's a bad look for marquee games to be played at Yankee Stadium. It's a team that could be bigger and better than they are that can't be because they have a bad venue to play in. That has to change. I think it affects it nationwide because if you're looking at a game at Yankee Stadium, there's a lot of people who will say, you know what, I'm just not going to watch this game because this doesn't look good. And that's a shame because NYC as a team is a very good team. It's just, it's not a good place to play.
No.
So it has to change. The rivalry's healthy. The rivalry's healthy between the two, and it's good, and those games are good. The rivalry has not moved the needle nationwide, though. And that's a bigger question for me about MLS moving the needle nationwide outside of its markets. Like, obviously here in Atlanta, it is a big deal, and Atlanta is a big team nationwide, but what is the MLS conversation in Kansas City? Because Sporting Kansas City moves the needle in Kansas City, but when it's the Portland-Seattle game, when it's the Atlanta-LA game, when it is the big game of the week around the league, is Kansas City watching? That's the part that's not necessarily happening yet. So the NYC issue is part of that because when you have a marquee team playing in a bad situation and not putting a compelling product on your TV screen, people are going to skip it. And it's already hard enough to sell the nationwide storyline when you're taking an NYC team out of that because there's already a couple strikes because it just doesn't look as good. It's not presented as well. Then that makes it even harder.
Then point 5, Inter Miami becomes what we all think it will be. Do these 5 things, and we're in the discussion.
Still overtime. I mean, it's still a few years away because Miami is going to take a little bit of time to be everything that it can be, and that's good. And Austin will take probably a little more time because they'll do it at a little bit slower pace. St. Louis will add to it. Sacramento, if it's done with them, they'll add to it. If Charlotte is the next one, they'll add to it. So all those things will make it bigger, and they'll be part of this process, which isn't going to happen overnight. I look at England as where you'd obviously want to be. That's your vision when you're talking about TV money. And the TV money feeds England to be the biggest league in the world. You'd love to be there someday. That's what you should be shooting for. You should never be saying, well, we can't do that. Well, then just stop. Just stop and just don't even try anymore. That's what you should be shooting for. You're not going to get there anytime soon, but that's the target. The quality of La Liga, of Serie A, of the Bundesliga, and I guess I'd probably rank it right now as England, Germany, Spain, Italy in a top 4 of what you're shooting for. Okay, then what? Well, you got France. You also have Liga MX that is drawing more ratings right now, so that's something you have to compete with. You have Brazil, which is a huge league. You have, your Turkey. You have Portugal. You have the Netherlands. You have some other leagues that I think you're right around now. Not quite there. I think Mexico's there. I think Brazil's there. Argentina's there to a little bit lesser degree, but they're there. So the U.S. and MLS is kind of in that jumble right now and maybe towards the back of the jumble. But it's not going to take a massive, crazy thing for them to jump ahead of some of those and get to that number 5 spot. It's not. I think it's a target you should be shooting for in the next 10 years. I think John might have fizzled out. There were some connection issues on his end. We will try to get him back. Couple bits of news and notes before we take one final break. Chris Whittingham had tweeted that out about Radio Catalunya and David Beckham and Lionel Messi. Another part that Whittingham added to the initial report that MLS Buzz had and Radio Catalunya had, that the Barcelona board is aware of these discussions. they know that it is a possibility and it's not just talk. That does affect what Barcelona might do with their potential moves with Messi. A couple updates on the U.S. youth national teams. The 17s had 2 wins and a loss in a tournament they played in as final prep for the U17 World Cup. George Bello was a big part of the 2 wins over the Netherlands and Mexico. The U.S. U20s had 2 wins over the break. George Campbell was part of those wins. The U23s beat Japan 2-0. Brandon Vasquez was a second-half sub. So on the youth national team side, it's looking good for the U.S. Senior national team, we'll see what the conversation is after tonight's match with Uruguay. We're going to take our final break real quick. We'll be right back after this.
A ranger station.
I'd like to report a bear hug.
Okay.
I put out my campfire and Smokey Bear hugged me.
So you drowned the fire, you stirred it, drowned it again, and felt that it was cold?
Uh-huh.
Yeah, but he's just letting you know you did good.
Bear hug from Smokey Bear. Status update.
I'm gonna let you go now. There are many ways to start a fire, but one sure way to put it out. Learn how you can do your part at SmokeyBear.com.
Sponsored by the U.S. Forest Service Ad Council and your state forester.
As a business owner, you know that every year brings new challenges and opportunities. The success of your business demands expertise and focus. And Country Financial can help you keep that focus by helping ensure you have the right insurance protection in place to meet your goals. Jason Wright can help you create a customized insurance plan that has coverages designed just for your business. Give Jason a call at 678-568-6871 or reach him on Facebook at Jason Wright Agency. Coverages vary by state. Policies issued by Country Mutual Insurance Company, Bloomington, Illinois.
This is what matters. This is beyond X's and O's. This is the difference mutual respect makes. This is what character looks like. This is what defines us in Georgia. This is sportsmanship. School sports. It's not the outcome that matters most, but the way the games are played. This message presented by the Georgia High School Association and the Georgia Athletic Directors Association.
If you've been hurt in a car wreck, contact my friend Steve Apolinsky of Apolinsky and Associates. He's been representing individuals for over 30 years throughout Georgia and Alabama. Email him at steve@aa-legal.com or call him 24/7 at 404-377-9191. The initial consultation is free.
Welcome back. Final segment. We'll see if John is here or not for it. He's been floating around like a ghost. He's here now. We'll see how long that lasts. Go ahead and ask a question from Twitter while you have it, because your connection might go again. Like it just did, because that's what happens. All right. We're going to wrap things up because the audio and technological gremlins are making life very difficult for John this morning, and in turn making it difficult for me this morning. Yeah, I got you muted, John. You can keep yelling in the background because I want to make sure you're actually going to stay connected here. Let's try again. Here we go. He's back.
All right. Yeah. DJ at Mr. Fantastic. What's your thoughts on Romelu Lukaku saying MIS needs to end the salary cap and allow its clubs to spend because it's slowing the growth since many players want to play in the league but don't like to pay salary?
MLS, not MIS.
Okay, well, that's I guess. That says MIS.
Yeah,
I'm hopeful it might be.
I don't
there's
know
something that's Italian that I didn't know.
I don't know the MIS league. I didn't see the full interview.
Michigan International Speedway.
No, that has nothing to do with this show. I didn't see the full interview, but I know Lukaku talked about MLS. It's easy for a player to say that they would like to see the salary cap ended. Of course they would. I mean, that's completely common. I don't think it's that simple, and I don't think Romelu Lukaku is up on Major League Soccer business and financials either. So take what he said with a grain of salt. I do think ultimately they have to spend more, though, and that's a given. That's understood. Ending the cap doesn't mean everything is good, and not ending the cap doesn't mean that you can't increase spending. I think you need to increase spending, period. Are you at a point where if you got rid of the cap and you just said, go ahead and spend what you want, do what you want, would that be better for the league? I honestly don't think it would be. I think you need a cap. I think you need a much larger cap. I think you need to have the ability that if there are players you want to come play in this league, you can go get them, and you're in a good spot to go get them, and you can benefit from having them in your league. All that is great. But I think we're seeing it in different leagues around the world that just getting rid of it doesn't mean that everything is hunky-dory. I don't think that's the case. I don't think you want to see a league where you have a couple teams that are capable of winning that every year and that's it. I don't think that's necessarily where you want to be. I think you want to see some parity. You want to see some opportunity for lesser teams to compete on a somewhat even stage. But you've got to take some of the shackles off. It's finding the balance for me between the two. It's finding the right level of a salary cap. It's finding the right level to promote investment. And it's finding that to secure the steady growth that this league has had and accelerate it. That's what I want to see. I don't think just going from the cap you have now to no cap does that. I think the question, and we talked about it a little bit in the last segment with Tavka's question, how much growth do we see in the CBA? And there was a great piece over at The Athletic about, are the players in a position to really force change here? Probably not. They're probably not there to where they could afford to go on strike and afford to really effectively change it. I think the change that you're going to see in this CBA is going to come from the ownership groups that want to spend more versus the ownership groups that want to keep spending down. The internal battle on the MLS ownership side, that's what's going to force change. And that's what's going to have the most impact. So that's what I'll be looking for in these negotiations and how that affects it. That's what I want to see. And I think it needs to happen here. How aggressively does it happen? That's what remains to be seen. It's good that Lukaku's talking about the league. It's good that players are looking at the league and saying, all right, yeah, I want to go there. It's, is it a good thing is it a bad thing that you have a limited number of spots that a Romelu Lukaku could fit into right now? There are teams who could pay Romelu Lukaku if they wanted to. There's quite a few teams that have the spot to do it, and there's quite a few teams that could afford to pay him if they want to. I don't think getting rid of the salary cap makes it more possible for that. I think for a player like Lukaku, that's not the issue. It's the squad player in Italy or Germany or Spain that would be in a $400,000 to $800,000 a year contract here, that there are more limitations on them being incorporated into rosters. Those are the ones who are missing out on these opportunities. The megastars, they have places to go. Now, the league is set up to not have LAFC or NYCFC or Atlanta United have all of the megastars. And maybe that's more of what Lukaku is saying. But I don't think that's something the league's going to get away from anytime soon. I think that's a much longer process.
What other news and notes do we have? Because we are officially caught up on the Twitters.
That's it. We've talked plenty. There's been plenty of things. There's a piece over at MLS Soccer about the 10 most underrated players in the league. Eric Remedi's on it. I agree with that. I think he falls into that. It's a little hard to know, who the underrated players are that are being chosen from. It could vary from person to person. I think Greg Seltzer did a pretty good job of laying out his criteria, and Remedi would definitely fit into that. So go check that out over at MLSsoccer.com. We will be on the air tonight at just a little after 7 o'clock on the SDH app and soccerdownhere.net, live from Pizzeria Azzurri, hanging out with the Suburban Ultras and all the folks in Cumming, GA. So come join us if you can. Otherwise, listen, get ready for USA and Uruguay, and we'll talk about it tomorrow morning on the show. Mucho platio.
Mucho platio.